Arrow functions have quickly become a staple in JavaScript since their introduction in ES6, so here's everything you need to know about them. There's two reasons to use arrow functions. The first is you want a shorter syntax for anonymous functions, or you want to change the way that the keyword this behaves. Typically when people are using arrow functions, they're using it for that shorter syntax, so let's look at a couple of examples. So here I have an HTML file set up for us with a p tag, and we're going to change the inner HTML of that p tag based off our function greeting. So I'll define that now and then just throw some arbitrary stuff in there. So if I save this and go to my web browser, I can then see that hi is displayed to the user, and if I open my console, I can see that greeted user appears. Now I'm going to hop back to our code, and I'm going to rewrite this normal function as an arrow function. And the way we do that is we delete the function keyword and then add equals greater than sign in between the parentheses and the curly braces. And that's it. Now we have a arrow function, and you can see it does the exact same thing. If you only have one line of code in your function body, we can make this even shorter. Since there's only one line of code, we can delete the curly braces since they don't need to dictate where the function body begins and ends. And then we can take that one step further by deleting the return keyword. If there is only a value after the arrow notation, then JavaScript is going to assume you want to return that. So now if we want to add some parameters to this, we can click in between the parentheses and say name and favorite food. And then after that, we're going to return hello, whatever your name is, your favorite food is blank. So then we'll update our function call with Samantha and tuna. And if we look at our page again, it now says, hi Samantha, your favorite food is tuna. Let's say you don't care about the user's favorite food. We'll delete all the favorite food stuff, and then that only leaves us with one parameter, so we can actually delete the parentheses around it as well, and that covers all of these shorthand notations that you can do with arrow functions. Now for most people, that's all you need to know, but let's talk about how arrow functions affect the this keyword. In regular functions, this refers to the object that called the function, whereas in arrow functions, this refers to the object that defined the function. So let's look at an example. I'm going to make two buttons, and when I click those, one of them is going to call a normal function, and the other one is going to call an arrow function, just like this. These two functions are going to do the same thing. They're just going to set the inner HTML of this display tag as this. Now you can see when I hit normal function, I see object HTML button element, but when I click that arrow function, we get object window. So for normal functions, this refers to the object that called the function, and since we triggered the click event of this HTML button, it called normal function, meaning that this refers to the object that called it, the button. The arrow function is a little bit more tricky. So the reason why this refers to object window is because that is the global object in web browsers. A global object in JavaScript is an object which represents the global scope, which is the scope that contains and is visible in all other scopes. So it's the top of the scope hierarchy. So since we define this arrow function within an HTML file, that means that our global object is always going to be that window, that web browser. But this refers to the global object because that's the default for when you don't put this in a class you defined. Let's look at one more example. I've changed the code to call set functions from classes instead of functions defined directly in the global scope. Now, when I hit normal function from class, we still see that HTML button just as before, and that's because that's still the object that called our function that contains this. However, when I hit arrow function from class, I see object, and that's because my arrow class defined the function containing this, so the object we instantiated from that class is what this refers to. It refers to the object that defined it. So now you know all the shortcuts for writing arrow functions and how they affect the this keyword. Thanks for watching.